again, it's Tuppence, and I've got an extra video for you. This is a Summer Sci-Fi Collaboration. It's hosted by Kirk and Nikki from Kernix Creations. I will pop a link to the playlist in the description box below. Please go check that out. I'm going to be using a frog mould and some Aqua cast. I've got 100 grams of Aqua cast powder, which I'm hoping will be enough for this frog. And I've also got this frog on a plastic bag. This is a super squishy silicone that can really mess with your mat if you leave that on there for any length of time. So I've just popped it on a bag to protect my mat. So now I need to add my water. I've got this on the scales, and when I turn that on it will zero. And now I can add 35 grams of water to my 100 powder. Right, now I just have to give this a mix and make sure that all that water and powder are mixed together and there's no loose powder or lumps floating around in there. I've sped this up. Do take your time when you stir this. Try not to put in any more bubbles than is necessary. I'm going to add a tiny bit more water. You've got some flexibility with the amount of water you use, so I want this to be slightly more runny than usual. My mould is quite deep and I want to give this every chance for the bubbles to rise up through the mixture. It may mean that I need to wait a little bit longer for it to cure, but that's not too bad. It only takes about an hour anyway. This will probably mean it will be about another half hour to an hour. Okay, now I can start to add this to my mould. So I'm going to lift this up and let it drop from a bit of a height. That should help to knock any bubbles up. Looked like a big lump went in there, so I think that was something that was stuck on the edge of my cup, because I do like to use my cups more than once. It's okay if there is a little bit of a lump in there, as long as it's not powder. Okay, this frog has his arm extended, and I'm just giving that a squish and a massage, trying to make sure that there aren't any bubbles stuck in there, and that all of the Aqua cast is able to get into that area. Right, now I can carry on filling this up. Hopefully I should have just enough. Okay, I'm going to stop just short of the top because I want to give this another tap, not so much of a squish, otherwise that will come cascading out the top. Ask me how I know that that happens. I'm going to scrape just a little bit more. I have got enough, and then fill this up, and I will tap this mould to encourage the bubbles to come out. I'm going to hold it with one hand though, as I say, because it's very wobbly and I will knock it over. And then I will be back once I'm ready to demould. I'm also going to need a coaster, so I've poured that using Aqua cast also. I am making a Star Trek frog. He's a lowly ensign who is a member of the security team, and he wants to beat the odds as he's going on his first away team. He knows usually that the red shirts tend to end up dead. So how is he going to beat the odds? Well, you'll have to find out. But this coaster is going to be the transporter pad. An hour later it's cured and I can demould this and leave this to dry. Okay, he's all set now, so I am ready to start to demould him. I'm just going to pull this back gently. As I say, it is a super flexible silicone, so that should make demoulding pretty easy, but I do want to be careful of that arm that is sticking up. Just roll it back off the head. It's looking good so far. Right, I'm going to deal with this bit. I don't like that there, so I'm going to remove that. It's just come out of the mould, so it's still pretty soft, and this is the best time to try and carve away any of the bits I don't want. I tried to use that spatula at first, but it's just a little too hard for that. So I'm going to use a craft knife. I've also got a file as well. I'm going to gently chip away at this, and I won't make you watch all of it, but once I've removed this, I will sand it nice and smooth, and then I need to leave him to dry for 24 hours before I can do any painting. Okay, it's all cleaned up, and he now just has the two legs. So I now need to make my Star Trek frog, but Star Trek is not the only sci-fi that I am going to give a nod to in this video. I'm going to be crossing some streams, and I would like you to guess, if you can, what streams they are. So he is called Ripley, and as I say, he is an ensign, a red shirt. He needs to figure out a way that he can protect himself when he goes on an away team so that he isn't immediately killed. So I'm going to make a little paint pot or paint bucket, and I'm just using some scrap pieces of paper, and I'm just coiling this around a microbrush stick at the moment to start off the center coil. So I've put some bookbinding glue on there to hold that together, and I'll keep coiling this around, and I'm going to keep rolling this until I make a cylinder. I'm going to add some more bookbinding glue, and I'll add another paper strip to that. And I'll keep on going until I get the diameter that I want. There's a line around the belly on this frog, and I need to fill that in because I'm going to be painting clothes on him. So I've got a small lump of air dry clay. This is Das, and I'm going to use that to make a paste. I'm just going to mix a tiny bit of water with that, and I'll squish it up until I make a paste, and I can use that to fill in on the belly. So I'm just going to use the silicone tool, and I'm going to layer this over the crack or the mark in the belly. Just make sure that that is all filled in. Once this is dry, I can sand that flat, and hopefully you won't notice that there was anything there. Okay, so once I've got it all filled in, I'll need to leave this to dry completely. He needs a can of paint. Well, this doesn't look very much like that at the moment, so I'm going to add some paint to the top of this coil and disguise that. I'm just going to lay this on the surface. It's thick enough that it won't drip down in the center of that hole. I don't need to be too careful as it's going to be a textured paint layer. So once I smooth this out, I'm going to need to leave this to dry completely. Okay, I need to put a paint label onto my cylinder. That clay is now dry, and I'm going to use some sellotape just to laminate this small piece that I've printed out. I use my laser printer, but I'm going to give this some protection and make it look like a tin can by putting some shiny sellotape over the top. So I'll cover it all, and then I'm going to use some scissors to trim around the edges and remove any of the excess tape. Then I can add some bookbinding glue to the back and stick this around the cylinder. The clay that I used to fill the belly line is nice and dry, and I'm just using some sandpaper to remove any of the excess and make sure that it's nice and smooth. Once that's done, I'll use a cloth to remove any of the dust, and I'll be ready to give him a layer of paint. Time to add some paint, and although frogs are usually green, I'm going to paint mine blue. This is another clue into how I am crossing the streams. Let me know who you think it is. I'm going to fast forward the painting, and I'll put on some music, and I'll be back once he's dry. So Ripley is part of the away team and he needs a transporter. So this is a metal curtain ring. I'm going to use that, and I'm going to use some UV resin to seal this down onto the surface. I want to create a barrier because I'm going to be putting some epoxy resin in this, and I don't want that to leak out underneath. I'll put a blob of the UV resin in there. I'm just going to take a silicone tool and make sure that that makes a seal all the way on the inside. I'll do half of the ring first, and then I can use the UV torch to seal it so that I can let go of the ring and then continue to fill it up. Once I have a seal, I'm going to pop this underneath my UV lamp to make sure that it's fully cured before I add the epoxy layer. I'm going to add a second ring, but I need to mark the inside of it with a pencil as I'm going to put some magnets in there. I'm going to put a dot of super glue onto the coaster and then I can place the magnet on top. If I don't stick the magnets down before I put the ring over the top, they are just attracted to the metal ring and I never get them in place. Consequently, I need to make sure that this one is stuck before I attempt to put the other one in place. Otherwise, I'm just going to end up with two stuck in one spot. So another dot of glue, and then hold this down before it moves. Make sure that that stays stuck. And once that glue has grabbed enough, I can let go. Now I just need to make sure that the glue is completely dry before I add the ring and the UV resin. The UV resin has formed a seal around the bottom of the ring so that I can add some epoxy. I've got 10 mils here. I'm using Apex 1 coat. This should set really quickly, about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And I'm going to add some laser powder to that. It's a holographic silver powder. I'm going to put a good scoop in there, and then I can give that a mix around. So I don't have very much resin in here, as I say, 10 mils, but I do want to make sure that I have enough of the laser powder in here that it is not going to be see-through. I don't want to be able to see those magnets once I've poured this into the rings. Give that a good mix, and I think I'm going to add a little bit more. That's not really enough. Similar scoop, that should be enough. Make sure that is mixed in as well. Right, I'm going to top this up now, pour that in and just fill these up. I want to fill them level to the surface, and then I'm going to leave these to set and I'll be back when they're ready. There's a little bit of paint overspill, so I'm going to cover that up by using a silver chrome marker. I'll go all the way around the outside of the coaster, and I'll carry on doing that in a minute. And I'm also going to go around the top edge of this little paint pot. I want to give the impression that it's made of tin. So I've given my frog a coating of acrylic varnish. I did the outside and just used a spray varnish. And now I need to stick him onto the transporter pad. I'm going to put him on the one without the magnets in it. And I'm using some B7000 glue. I'll put a generous amount on his feet and then just stand him on top of the pad. And he will happily stand there until the glue sets. And I'll use the same glue to stick the paint bucket down and tuck it behind him. Okay, he is now stuck and this is pretty much finished. I did make a little booklet. This is some scrap paper and it says Ripley's disguise ensured his safe return with the away team, but his failure to master the Vulcan greeting caused major problems. If you're a Star Trek fan, I'm pretty sure you're going to get that immediately. He's not holding up the right fingers for a Vulcan salute, and he's painted his red shirt gold so that he can ensure he survives an away team mission. You can just see the red peeking through. So the booklet's just going to sit on there, and the paper clips will attach to the magnets that are in there. And his arm is at the perfect angle that I can drape some elastic bands over the top of it. And I've made a desk tidy. The booklet just has the plain paper inside it, and I can replace that whenever I want, as I'm not going to be sticking it down, and it also explains the joke. So here is my Summer Sci-Fi Collaboration, an homage to Star Trek, but also a couple of other sci-fi things, so let me know your guesses as to what that is in the comments below, and do check my description box for any supplies and for the playlist. If you've liked this video, please give me a thumbs up, comment, share, subscribe if you haven't. There is a QR code on the screen which you can scan with your phone and you will be able to subscribe to my channel. It's free and you'll be able to come back and see what I make next time. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye.